What is up, love doves? Little Raven coming at you from a Thursday afternoon, evening. It's really the evening, but because it's the summertime here in Great Bird City, it's still kind of light out. And this is going to be a straightforward segment today. I just wanted to read you guys a chapter from one of my personal Bibles. So my main personal Bible is the Tao Te Ching by the great philosopher Lao Tzu. But then, of course, another one of my personal Bibles is Lame Deer Seeker of Visions. And I always believe in giving credit, so Lame Deer Seeker of Visions is copyrighted 1972, I believe. Yep, 1972. Written by John Fire Lame Deer and Richard Erdoes. And this is a chapter called The Green Frog Skin. And I'll never forget the first time I read this chapter. I was in the subway in Washington, D.C., and I was on my way to a date. And this chapter like fucked with my head so much that it like put me in a mopey mood for the date. And then it was a kind of like a so-so date because I was like not really in the mood to date after reading this chapter. So I apologized to my date that night. I mean, it was fine. It was a fine date. We went to some like bougie microbrewery place and got some beers and whatever. But I remember I was just like, this chapter really got to me. So, all right, it's chapter 3 in the book Lame Deer Seeker of Visions, The Green Frog Skin. The green frog skin, that's what I call a dollar bill. In our attitude towards it lies the biggest difference between Indians and whites. My grandparents grew up in an Indian world without money. Imagine that, everybody. World without money. Just imagine, just for a second, just imagine it. Just before the Custer battle, the white soldiers had received their pay. Their pockets were full of green paper and they had no place to spend it. What were their last thoughts as an Indian bullet or arrow hit them? I guess they were thinking of all that money going to waste, of not having a chance to enjoy it, of a bunch of dumb savages getting their paws on that hard-earned pay. I love his sense of humor. That must have hurt them more than the arrow between their ribs. I mean, probably right. The close hand-to-hand fighting, with 1,000 horses golly-hootin' all over the place, had covered the battlefield with an enormous cloud of dust. And in it, the green frog skins of the soldiers were whirling around like snowflakes in a blizzard. Now, what did the Indians do with all that money? They gave it to their children to play with. To fold those strange bits of colored paper into all kinds of shapes, making them into toy buffalo and horses. Somebody was enjoying that money after all. The books tell of one soldier who survived. He got away, but he went crazy, and some women watched him from a distance as he killed himself. The writers always say he must have been afraid of being captured and tortured, but that's wrong. Can't you see it? There he is, belly down in a gully, watching what is going on. He sees the kids playing with the money, tearing it up. The women using it to fire up some dried buffalo chips to cook on. The men lighting their pipes with green frog skins. But mostly, all those beautiful dollar bills floating away with the dust and the wind. It's this sight that drove that poor soldier crazy. He's clutching his head, hollering, "God damn Jesus Christ Almighty! Look at them dumb, stupid red sons of bitches wasting all that dough." He watches till he can't stand it any longer, and then he blows his brains out with a 6-shooter. It would make a great scene in a movie, but it would take an Indian mind to get the point. The green frog skin. That was what the fight was all about. The gold of the Black Hills, the gold in every clump of grass. Each day you can see ranch hands riding over this land. They have a bag full of grains hanging from their saddle horns, and whenever they see a prairie dog hole, they toss a handful of oats in it. Like a kind little old lady feeding the pigeons in one of your city parks. Only the oats for the prairie dogs are poisoned with strychnine. What happens to the prairie dog after he has eaten this grain is not a pleasant thing to watch. The prairie dogs are poisoned because they eat grass. 1,000 of them eat up as much grass in a year as a cow. So if the rancher can kill that many prairie dogs, he can run one more head of cattle, make a little more money. When he looks at a prairie dog, he only sees a green frog skin getting away from him. For the white man, each blade of grass or spring of water has a price tag on it. And that is the trouble. Because look at what happens. The bobcats and coyotes which used to feed on prairie dogs now have to go after a stray lamb or a crippled calf. The rancher calls the pest control officer to kill these animals. This man shoots some rabbits and puts them out as bait with a piece of wood stuck in them. That stick has an explosive charge which shoots some cyanide into the mouth of the coyote who tugs at it. The officer has been trained to be careful. He puts a printed warning on each stick reading, "Danger, explosive, poison." The trouble is that our dogs can't read, and some of our children can't either. And the prairie becomes a thing without life. No more prairie dogs, no more badgers, foxes, coyotes. The big birds of prey used to feed on prairie dogs too, so you hardly see an eagle these days. The bald eagle is your symbol. You see him on your money, but your money is killing him. When a people start killing off their own symbols, they are in a bad way. True that. The Sioux have a name for white men. They call them wasikun, fat takers. It is a good name because you have taken the fat of the land. But it does not seem to have agreed with you. Right now you don't look so healthy. Overweight, yes, but not healthy. Americans are bred like stuffed geese to be consumers, not human beings. The moment they stop consuming and buying, the frog skin world has no more use for them. They have become frogs themselves. Some cruel child has stuffed a cigar into their mouths, and they have to keep puffing and puffing until they explode. Fat taking is a bad thing, even for the taker. It is especially bad for Indians who are forced to live in this frog skin world, which they did not make and for which they have no use. You, Richard, are an artist. That's one reason we get along. Artists are the Indians of the white world. They are called dreamers who live in the clouds, improvident people who can't hold on to their money, people who don't want to face, quote, reality, unquote. They say the same thing about Indians. How the hell do these frog skin people know what reality is? The world in which you paint a picture in your mind, a picture which shows things different from what your eyes see, that is the world from which I get visions. I tell you, this is the real world, not the green frog skin world. That's only a bad dream, a streamlined, smog-filled nightmare. Because we refuse to step out of our reality into this frog skin illusion, we are called dumb, lazy, improvident, immature, otherworldly. It makes me happy to be called otherworldly, and it should make you so too. It's a good thing our reality is different from theirs. I remember one white man looking at my grandfather's vest. It was made of black velvet and had $10 gold coins for buttons. The white man had a fit, saying over and over again, quote, "Only a crazy Indian would think of that, using good money for buttons. A man who hasn't got a pot to piss in." But Grandpa wasn't a bit crazy, and he had learned to know the value of money as well as anybody. But money exists to give a man pleasure. Well, it pleasured Grandpa to put a few golden Indian heads on his vest. That made sense. I knew a well-educated Indian who had come back to his reservation after working for many years in a big city. With his life savings, he opened a cafeteria and gas station. All day long, the cars lined up. "Hey, uncle, fill her up. I can't pay, but you are rich. You let me have it free." And the same thing over at the cafeteria. "Say, uncle, let me have one of those barbecued beef sandwiches. Don't bother to write up a bill for a relation of yours." The owner had done very well living and working in the white man's way among white people, but now he was an Indian again, back among Indians. He couldn't say no to a poor relative, and the whole reservation was just one big mass of poor relatives, people who called him uncle and cousin regardless of the degree of their relationship. He couldn't refuse them, and his education couldn't help him in this situation. We aren't divided up into separate, neat little families, pa, ma, kids, and to hell with everybody else. The whole damn tribe is one big family. That's our kind of reality. It wasn't long before this Indian businessman was broke and in debt. But this man was smart, white educated. so he found a way out. He hired a white waitress and a white gas station attendant and spread the word that he had been forced to sell the business to white owners. From then on, he did well. Everybody paid because they knew white men didn't give anything away for free. I once heard of an Indian who lost a leg in an industrial accident. He got about $15,000 in insurance money. In no time, his place was overrun with more than 100 hungry relatives. They came in old jalopies, in buckboards, on horseback or on foot. From morning to night, a pickup truck was making round trips between his place and the nearest store, hauling beef and bread and crates of beer to keep all of those lean bellies full. In the end, they bought a few scrub steers and did their own butchering. The fun lasted a few weeks and then the money was gone. A day after that, the relatives were gone too. That man had no regrets. He said he wished he'd lose his other leg so that he could start all over again. This man had become quite a hero, even to other tribes, and he was welcome everywhere. I made up a new proverb, quote, "Indians chase the vision, white men chase the dollar," unquote. We are lousy raw material from which to form a capitalist. We could do it easily, but then we would stop being Indians. We would just be ordinary citizens with a slightly darker skin. That's a high price to pay, my friend, too high. We make lousy farmers too, because deep down within us lingers a feeling that land, water, air, the earth, and what lies beneath its surface cannot be owned as someone's private property. That belongs to everybody, and if man wants to survive, he had better come around to this Indian point of view, the sooner the better, because there isn't much time left to think it over. I always remember listening to my first radio. That was in the little town of Interior, way back in the 20s. There was a sign over the door. Listen to wireless music from Sioux Falls, 300 miles away, $1.50 per person. You had to plunk that much down to be allowed inside this cafe to give your ears a treat. We saw a guy fooling around with a needle on a crystal and heard a tinny, crackling voice saying something about winter feed, corn, and the price of prime hogs. At that moment, an old Indian spoke up. They took the land and the water, now they own the air too. So we have the green frog skin world in which all things have a price tag. Indians don't like to haggle. A long argument about money is painful. But we can drive a shrewd bargain. My uncle, Poor Thunder, bred a special brand of Appaloosas. At that time, you could get a saddle-broken horse for $20, not one of Poor Thunder's Appaloosas. If a white man came and asked for a price, my uncle would tell him it was $75 per head. The buyer used to scratch his head and say the price was too high. They always came back in a day or two because these horses were really something. But when they returned with cash in their hands, my uncle would tell them, that was yesterday's price. Now it will cost you $100. If they were foolish enough to do some more head scratching, the price would go up to $125. But the cheerful buyer who didn't haggle, who made up his mind at once, got $10 off. Uncle loved his ponies. He once told me, an Indian can love one horse so much, he'll die for it. He had a great head for business. He was one hell of a horse trader, but he gave most of what he got away to his poor relations. The trader in him couldn't get the better of the Indian. Old Uncle would sometimes leave a heifer or steer in front of a poor cousin's house. He used to tell me, there's more to food than just passing through your body. There are spirits in the food, watching over it. If you are stingy, that spirit will go away thinking, that bastard is so tight, I'll leave. But if you share your food with others, this good spirit will always stay around. I was brought up to regard food as something sacred. I can foresee a day when all you have to give us are capsules with some chemicals and vitamins instead of food, with the missionaries telling us to fold our hands over a few tablets on our plates, saying, Heavenly Father, bless our daily pill. I'm glad I won't be around to see that. I'd rather have a glass of minisha, red water, with one of my neighbors. He is an old wino, but very generous. He'll share his last bottle with a friend. He told me, the whiskey can't get away from me. The more I give away, the more it comes. I've got to be careful or I'll drown in it. The anthropologists are always saying that there is still too much of the old buffalo hunter in us. Share your food, share your goods, or the tribe will perish. That was good for yesterday. Today it's saying, no, no, no to a poor cousin. That's the practical thing to do. Always trying to remake people in one's image is a white man's disease. Let's run that back! Trying always to remake people in one's own image is a white man's disease. I can't cure that, I tell those anthros. You have green frog skins on your brains. If we Indians were such filthy savages as you tell us, we should have eaten you up when you first came to this turtle continent. Then I could have some peace and quiet now. That shuts them up for a while. They are also wagging their fingers at us when we have a giveaway feast. What they are trying to tell us is that poor people can't afford to be generous. But we hold on to our otuhan, our giveaways, because they help us to remain Indians. All the big events in our lives, birth and death, joy and sadness, can be occasions for a giveaway. We don't believe in a family getting wealthy through inheritance. Better give away a dead person's belongings. That way he or she will be remembered. If a man loses his wife, his friends come and help him cry. He cries for 4 days, but no longer, because life must go on. And if he cries too much, the spirits will give him something extra to cry about. Not so long ago, I saw an old lady who still cut her hair short to mourn her dead grandson. After 4 days, she and her husband emptied the whole house. They gave away the grand piano, the TV, even their bed. They were sitting on the bare floor calling out to the people coming to pay their respects. Say, brother, sister, do you need this thing? If it is useful to you, take it. Only the empty walls were left at the end of the day. Friends gave them a new bed. A wopila, a thanksgiving for something good that happened to a person, is also a time for giving things away. But your white man's day of Thanksgiving, that's a day of mourning for the Indians, nothing to be thankful for. You put "In God We Trust" on your money. I'm glad you left the Great Spirit out of it. What you want to use your God for is your own business. I tried to show you that the green frog skin is something that keeps whites and Indians apart. But even a medicine man like myself has to have some money, because you force me to live in your make-believe world where I can't get along without it. Which means that I have to be two persons living in two different worlds. I don't like it, but I can't help it. I will try to tell you how I manage this. Whether I have been successful at it, you may judge for yourself. As long as I still had some of the horses and cattle left which my father had given me, I had no thought about earning money. I roamed. I didn't let myself get swallowed up by the frog skin world, but I was curious enough to explore it. I liked to go to town on horseback. I used to pick up my pals on the way, like Ben Rifle, who later became a congressman. We played around the little reservation called Wasoso, or Uppercut Meat. I was like an elk dreamer with the power to charm the girls. I had a good voice and liked to sing Indian. My grandparents had taught me all the old songs. I had no education, but always I was thinking, finding out, trying to fit what I saw and heard into some kind of reality. Then the day came when I swapped or sold the last of my livestock. I was almost happy. Now I no longer had any property to take care of to tie me down. Now I could be what I wanted, a real Sioux, an Iksawikasa, a common, wild, natural human being. Lao Tzu would resonate with that. Lame deer. That was my editorial. How such a creature could survive in frogskin land was something I would have to find out. I thought I'd do some hunting to keep meat on my table. I found out that I needed a hunting license if I wanted to go after deer or antelope. The idea of an Indian having to pay for a fancy piece of paper in order to be allowed to hunt on his own land to feed his own genuine red man's belly seemed like a bad joke to me. It made me laugh, but it also made me angry. The same people who had killed off the buffalo, who were chopping up the last wild horses into dog food, now were telling me that I was a danger to wildlife preservation if I wanted some red meat on my table, that I had to be regulated. Why couldn't I be satisfied with the starches they were handing out to us? They told me I should be flattered that having to buy a license put me up there on the same level with the white gentleman hunter. I answered, through an interpreter, that I was no goddamn sportsman, just a hungry, common, natural Indian who did not like fancy stamped papers and knew only one way he could use them. I was not the only one to feel this way. Most Indians would have been ashamed to hunt with a license, so we did without. The only catch was that there was really not much game left. A few hungry Indians, when they came across some white man's scrub steer, pretended that he had antlers, and there was a little bit of night butchering on the reservation, and some people were eating slow elk. There was some satisfaction in this, like stealing horses from the Crow Indians in the good old days. No matter how much I hated it, I had to face up to the fact that I would have to earn money. I was like many other full-bloods. I didn't want a steady job in an office or factory. I thought myself too good for that, not because I was stuck up, but simply because any human being is too good for that kind of no life, even white people. I trained myself to need and want as little as could be so that I wouldn't have to work except when I felt like it. That way, I got along fine with plenty of spare time to think, to ask, to learn, to listen, and to count coup on the girls. I hit the rodeo circuit. The riding suited me fine and put some cash in my pocket. I still had my fancy saddle and clothes, so I dressed myself up like a sore toe and hit the trail. I was good at this kind of life. I had been raised among horses, was almost part horse myself. I had learned about horses through the seat of my pants. In those days, when I started out, the rodeos were still fun. Most of the spectators could ride as well as the guys in the arena. They understood what you were doing, and there was no faking. Nowadays, rodeos are frog skin businesses, and the riders are just people working at a job. They could as well be TV repairmen, the way I look at it. There are no wild bucking horses anymore. Horses are trained to buck just as elephants are trained to walk around in the circus. The same horses show up again and again. The riders take movies of them so that when they draw that horse to ride, they already know how he's going to buck. That's not riding. You might as well drive a milk truck. It's all a scramble for money, points, and championships now. The excitement is gone. In the old days, you got a wild horse or cow that had never been ridden or roped before, and you had a lot to do. After you were through with that horse, or he with you, you most likely never set eyes on him again. And there were no specialists. I did every goddamn mad dog thing you can think of. Bulldogging, bronc busting, buffalo riding. That's great. Some great alliteration there from Lame Deer. Bulldogging, bronc busting, and buffalo riding. Those were real wild horses we rode. Real cloud hunters and sun fishers. You could be the first man to sit on one of them. You had to blindfold them to get them in a chute. Then it was hold on to their ears and away you go. You volunteered to ride the bad ones. Bring on that man killer, just for that one girl watching you. You had the wild cattle from the unfenced range for your steer roping and bulldogging. In my days, you went after that renegade, roped it by the horns, and rode your horse in such a way that it flipped the steer up high and over like a flapjack. It usually knocked him out long enough for you to have a chance to hog tie him before he came to. Some riders grabbed the steer's nose between their teeth and spread their arms to show the onlookers who was boss. The flipping was called throwing the hula hand, and it could break a steer's neck or yours. It's now forbidden, which is a good thing for man and beast. The most exciting thing that I did was buffalo riding. Those buffalo looked big and clumsy, but they went as fast as a dollar bill. I don't know where these creatures came from, probably Custer State Park. Once I rode 7 of them in one day. Those buffalo gave me a workout. I stayed with the first one for just one jump. He was a real fart knocker. On the second one, I hung on long enough for 2 jumps. On the 4th buffalo, I lasted for 6 full jumps. He went so fast the cowboys couldn't pick me off. Number 7 came out of the chute so quick, I missed him altogether. I spilled hard, but the sand was soft and good to me. I guess the spirits were watching over me because I never broke an arm or leg except once in Martin, South Dakota. I had my right shoulder put out of joint riding bareback. They had no doctors in attendance in those days. They just put a pillow under my arm and yanked away. I still have a bum shoulder after all these years. I'm sorry that Lame Deer couldn't get the proper physical therapy. That sucks. I used to go to the White River Frontier Days, which was rated as a big shindig around here. I traveled to Gillette, Wyoming, to Oregon, and all the way down to the border. Sometimes we didn't have a proper fairground. Those old jalopies, Model Ts, and horse buggies just formed a big circle at some place, and that was the arena. The spectators stayed in their cars and wagons, and if you did something they admired, they honked their horns good and loud. The prize money was small then, but the excitement was big. Today, it's just like a picture show. I figured it was time to quit bronc busting while I was still in one piece. Besides, I got bored whenever I was too good at one job. But I still kept traveling to the fairs as a rodeo clown. It was a little less dangerous than bulldogging, but only a little. Our name for clown is heyoka. For us Indians, a clown is somebody strange who always does the opposite of what's expected of him. A clown's work is sacred. It's a medicine man's job. I'll have more to say about this when we get to the heyoka part of my story, when we'll be talking about dreams of the thunder beings, visions, medicine, and boiled dog. It was my job as a clown to divert the bulls from the riders who had been thrown so that they wouldn't be gored. We had to do this in a funny way to amuse the crowd, waving blankets and having barrels around us like in a cartoon, showing a fellow when the income tax man is through with him. If the bull attacked me, I withdrew into my barrel like a snail into its shell, pulling in my horns, letting the bull bang me around from one end of the ring to the other. I had a special act. I was dressed up as a lady with a big yellow wig and 2 pillows stuffed in my chest for a make-believe, quote, babies bar, as the cowboys call the girls' bumpers. Bumpers. Oh man. Okay, let's keep going here. My stage name was Alice Jitterbug. I always made my entry riding on a cow, a very hot cow with the love wink in her eye. Once we were chased by a bull that took a real shine to her. The spectators thought it was very funny, but it wasn't funny to me. I waved my red underskirts at the Brahma bulls to take their minds off the fallen riders. Sometimes I had to dive headfirst into my barrel, letting the folks admire my lace underpants. Often I teamed up with another Indian clown, Jake Herman, who was famous for his funny stories and fairy tales. He's been dead now for a number of years. Quote, gone south, unquote, as we say. I had a lot of fun doing my act and made a little money off it too. The old timers in the little cow towns for 100 miles around still remember me. They don't remember me as a rider because there were so many good ones in those days. But there was only one Alice Jitterbug. Riding or clowning, it wasn't a bad life. There was always somebody to treat you to some bumblebee whiskey, the drink with a sting, people to get friendly with, Indian boys from other tribes I could talk to. I slept under the grandstand, if there was one, or in my bedroll out in the sagebrush, and I seldom slept alone. It was a rare night when a girl didn't keep me company. My elk power must have been strong. When it came to women, I looked upon them as a part of Mother Earth, which no man should treat as just a chunk of fenced-in property. If my bedroll looked soft and inviting to some girl, if she felt like taking a short rest and asked if I could spare a drink, or Sneaky Pete or Dago Red, who was I to say no? Or to make her sweat, or to make her swear on a stack of Bibles that she was single and had no brand on her. I figured that was none of my business. Some men didn't see eye to eye with me on this. I got into some good fights. I wasn't one to back down then. I told those jealous men, guarding an unwilling girl is like watching a sock full of fleas. Hopeless. It was a sociable life, but also lonely, happy and sad at the same time. That was what I wanted. I heard a young Indian rider sing, "I ain't got no father, I ain't got no father, to pay for the boots I wear. I ain't got no ma, I ain't got no ma, to mend my socks. I ain't got no gal, I ain't got no gal, to kiss my ugly puss. I'm just a Teoli Lakota Hoxila, a poor Sioux cowboy, a long way from home." That's how I felt, except that once in a while, some girl kissed my ugly puss. I joined that boy singing Tokia Blahe, "Where am I riding to? Where am I going?" I didn't know and I didn't care. It was rodeo in the summer and square dancing in the winter. We liked that white man's dancing because it gave a boy a chance to touch a girl, get a feel of her body. In an Indian powwow, the girls danced separately from the boys, moving in a circle, the girls going one way and the boys circling in the opposite direction. So one Indian got things started, a quadrille, a Western style. He got a fiddler, a mouth harp, and a good harmonica player. He did the calling himself. We caught on fast. I tried to be a caller too because I always stuck my neck out. Sometimes this guy had a sore throat, so he told me to go ahead and give her a whirl. I was excited and shy at the same time, and we made a lot of mistakes. It added up to one big confusion. Dancers bumping into one another, running around like chickens when the fox gets into the hen house. I was never a good English talker, and at that time I could hardly pronounce the words, even when I understood their meaning, which mostly I didn't. I just tried to remember the sound. The man who ran the dance told me, "Just so long as you make a big racket, it will be all right." I damn near busted my throat. After a while, I got the hang of this square dance calling. I got no frog skins out of it, just free meals. Here's how it went. Now rope that heifer, swing her high. Don't get lost, and away you go. Swap your partners, do-si-do. Hug your honey and pat her on the head. Turn her out to grass. Don't fall on your do-si-do. I swing mine and you swing yours. I swing yours and you swing mine. Aha, get going. Hit her hard, all the way around the promenade. Up the middle, march home. A good dance started at sundown and didn't stop until after sunup. Everybody went home red-eyed and sleepy, but with a lot of good memories. We slept all day on Sundays. Some of the old fiddlers always ended up with a slow, slow waltz, so slow you could watch the snails whiz by. I held on to my girl of the moment, closing my eyes, having some good vision of her that meant more to me than the music. These visions weren't always pure, but they sure were nice. We kept this square dancing up for 7 years, but it's dead now. The last old-style fiddler in our little town passed away not long ago, and the dancers are long married and white-haired if they are still alive. Well, this is what we did indoors in the wintertime. Summers I wanted to be out in the open. That was the powwow time for Indian-style dancing. But the powwows too have become a green frog skin business. When I was young, there was never an admission charge to the dance, and you didn't come to watch, you came to take part. Now they dance for the contest money. It discourages those who don't compete, who have come just for the fun of it. At first, the judges gave the prize money to a poor man who needed it. Now they give it to their relatives. Once this money business starts, everything turns sour. Yep. At the last Sundance in Pine Ridge, the organizing committee charged $1.50 admission. They threw 2 poor old Indians out of the dance ground because they couldn't pay. Imagine, charging an Indian to go to his Sundance. The people didn't like this, and in the evening, when they called for the Indian dancers to come in, well, there were all the dancers on the high ground, bunched up in little groups, decked out in their feathers, bustles, and ankle bells, leaning against their cars and pickups, making a fine show but not moving. They wouldn't dance in a place where 2 old full-bloods couldn't come without paying. It made us happy to see this. We won that round, but later we heard that 2 of the men who handled the organization of this dance were being accused of having embezzled some funds from the sacred Sundance. The green frog skin world is closing in, even on our most sacred ceremony. During my time of wandering, my oyumni, or roaming period, I got into card games, got drunk, or spent money on some girl. One way or another, I had to sell my fine saddle and take my fancy boots and doodads to the hawk shop. So I didn't care to make the rodeo circuit anymore. Somebody tried to give me a steady job as a ranch hand. I told him, I want to raise cane, not cattle. I wasn't through roaming yet. Something was driving me on, keeping me from settling down. I was still young, a born world shaker, or just plain foolish. A fellow told me that spud pickers were needed in Nebraska, 5 cents a bushel. I used my last 10 frog skins as a down payment on a broken down jalopy, an early Ford, a real museum piece even then. I jacked her up, cranked her up, and chug to Pine Ridge. There I picked up 3 other guys and we started out as a crew. They told us, the farther south you go, the less competition you'll have and the more you'll get paid. South we went, past Gordon, Agate, Hay Springs. I don't know, I think it's probably pronounced Agate, that town. I'm still learning mi español over here, so I pronounced it Agate. South we went past Gordon, Agate, Hay Springs. In the morning we rolled into the town of Alliance. A truck with a farmer came along. Want a job, fellows? 5 cents a bushel? That farmer had maybe 100 acres of spuds, so and so many plowed lines. We measured how many bushels there were to a line. It came to about 30 or 40 bushels. The farmer fixed us up with a lot of sacks and a team of horses. You have a belt with a long dragging sack between your legs. You go up and down the line from sunup to sundown. That first day I picked 75 bushels and they almost broke my back. $3 and 2 bits for 12 hours of hard work. That farmer didn't feed us. We had to eat raw potatoes and sleep in the hayloft. I became a champion spud picker. My record was 150 bushels, or $7.50 a day. That was the most I ever made. Later, we switched to another farmer. He was nicer. He paid us the same as the first one, but he had a heart and fed us, bread and butter, sow belly and coffee. The old barn he gave us to sleep in, though, had lots of wildlife we weren't keen on. Pants rats and seam squirrels. I didn't make 150 bushels there because I had to stop and scratch. We 4 Indians pooled our frog skins and shared the gas. We got paid every day. Once a month we bought canned goods, a big slab of bacon, a sack of sugar, and drank up what money was left over. When the season was finished, we had a big drunk in town. That day the moonshine was good. You drank it, filled yourself up, and the next day you felt nothing, no hangover. That was about the best moonshine I ever had. One of our crew had been without a woman for too long. He made up a song. I count coup on the girls. The moment I am on top of them, I'm on top of the world. I am the top man. Nobody could top this song, I guess. 2 of our little crew got involved with girls and left us, breaking up our gang. I had learned something about farmers and potatoes. Time to try something else. I went up north to Standing Rock. I felt a great need to be by myself. Think about what I had experienced so far. One day I was wandering aimlessly through the streets of Belle Fourche when a white woman came up to me and asked, could I do some sheep herding? Her husband had been out in the hills for a long time now, taking care of the woolies, and she was growing kind of hot for him to come back. I could see she had a soft, warm, moist spot there waiting for that man of hers. Jesus, dude. This was written a long time ago, everybody. 1972. She took me out to where her husband was, a long way off in the unfenced country where they had a big flock of sheep. That husband sure was glad to see me, a jolly man with a barefoot head that was shining in the sun whenever he took off his hat to wipe it. They were in a hurry to leave me and be off by themselves. I had a notion these 2 wouldn't drive straight home, but rest a few times under some cottonwoods. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. That's sheep herding for you. There was a big sheep wagon there with a stovepipe sticking out, loaded with everything I needed, food and stuff to last me for 6 months at least. This was to be my way home. I had all the grub I wanted and the pay was good. Barefoot Head had left me a .30-30 rifle, a handful of shells, and 2 sheepdogs. These dogs did all the work, whipping the strays into line. I was just a lonesome decoration. The place where the sheep sleep is called the bed ground, and that's where I slept too, the spot I put the wagon. Every morning at 5 o'clock, I took the sheep out for lunch, or rather the dogs did, with me following on horseback. Each time we picked a different place where the grass was plentiful. The sheep always spent the next 5 hours of the day eating, the next hour drinking, and then about 3 hours doing nothing in particular. That's when I gave the dogs time to chase off rabbits and did my own thinking. After this rest period, the sheep would eat some more, and finally came the grand parade home to the bed ground. Every few weeks, as soon as the sheep had eaten off all the grass around the wagon for as far as could be reached in a day's walk to and from the feeding grounds, it was time to move and find some more grass. Usually, I picked a place with a nice view from my wagon, and then the whole routine would start over again. Herding seems very boring to you until you try it for yourself. The fact is that the woolies can keep a man pretty busy. The reason is that they are man-bred, unnatural cousins of the wild mountain sheep, critters so dumb that they can't take care of themselves. They are always rolling over on their backs, and once they get themselves into that position, they can't get up again. Did you know that? I didn't. I would have never believed this, even from a white man-bred animal. But there they were with their 4 legs sticking up in the air, looking helpless and stupid. For some reason, once a sheep is lying on its back, it gets bloated like a balloon and it will die soon, unless somebody comes along and puts it on its feet again. Sometimes you have to stick an awl into them and they go poofed like a pricked balloon. They don't seem to mind. They simply deflate and start munching grass again within a few minutes as if nothing had happened. Well, some days I was busy turning those damn woolies over like flapjacks. Once I overlooked one and it died on me within an hour. Some sheep are so dumb, they won't recognize or feed their own lambs. These orphans are called bums. Oh, I just knocked my computer. And you have to hand raise them unless you can trick kerkawww, another lady sheep into adopting one, which can be done if you know how. In spite of having no brains to speak of, sheep can think up a lot of ways to keep a herder busy. At night, I ran the sheep up to the wagon and put out 2 kerosene lamps with reflectors so that I could keep an eye on the woolies and watch out for coyotes, bobcats, or maybe a stray mountain lion. When the dogs started barking, I knew coyotes had arrived. I could see their eyes like so many points of light in a wide circle around me. I didn't have to shoot. The moment I threw another log on the fire and got my 30-30 out, they took off and I could go back to sleep. Coyotes are smart, smarter than some people I know. So here I was, a Sioux Indian, running woolies, a flock master. In the morning, I went to the creek for water, which was so cold it hurt my teeth. I filled my cowboy hat with it and let the dogs drink from it, because I was told that's what a proper sheep herder does. I was happy to be alone, closing my eyes, thinking, figuring, listening to the voices, letting the spirits come to me. But after about a month, I began to get restless. I got tired of hearing nothing but the bleating of sheep. I began wishing for that man or his wife to come back for me, to send someone to spell me. I got so damn lonely out there, I prayed for a squaw to keep me company, even an ugly one. But day after day went by without seeing another human being or hearing a human voice. There was no radio, but Barefoot Head did leave me a stack of colored magazines, Saturday Evening Posts and such. I practiced my reading, tracing the printed lines with my finger. The stories and pictures in those magazines were all foreign to me, something from another world. I also found a Bible in the wagon, and I studied that too. So my English and my reading improved with time. Quote, and Shem begat Uz, and Uz begat Lud, and Lud begat Mash, and Mash begat Nush. Begat, begat, begat. Those ancient Hebrews, I gathered, were all sheep herders like me. With all that begetting, who in hell was watching their woolies? They had no 30-30s, but plenty of lions. All this begetting made me think of women, and that didn't help. I began to mumble to myself. I used to go out and holler just to hear my own voice. Those yellow-eyed sheep watched me. They thought I had gone crazy. Once in a while, one of them died through some accident, and I went on a diet of sheep, ram, lamb, and mutton, as they say. I lost all track of time, didn't know which day of the month it was. Hell, I wasn't even sure of the month. One day, I saw a cloud of dust. Barefoot Head and his old woman were coming up in their rattling wagon to see if I was still alive. When they stopped, I was all packed up and ready to go. They asked if anything was wrong. Was it the food or the pay? I told them that they had treated me real nice, but that I wasn't cut out to be a sheep man. I'd better quit before I forgot how to talk, before I got married to a lady sheep. I had been alone out there for over 3 months, and I got home with a big wad of frog skins. Not long ago, I ran into a modern sheep herder who had a tape recorder in his wagon. I asked him what it was for. He told me he used it to talk to himself. He had only one tape. When he got tired of arguing with himself on one subject, he erased it and started a dispute about something else. I think all old sheep herders are wicko, crazy, from being too much by themselves. I felt very sociable for a while after this, and my money was soon gone. Always, after working at the white man's job or a time of hell raising, I would go back to the old men of my tribe and spend many days learning about medicine and the ancient ways. Visions, a world beyond the frog skin world, have always been very important to us. You could almost say that a man with no vision can't be a real Indian. Out in the plains, we get our visions the hard way, by fasting and by staying in the vision pit for 4 days and nights, crying for a dream. Other tribes have the same quest for visions, but search for them in a different way. 80 years ago, the ghost dance religion came to us from the south, from a Paiute holy man. The people danced themselves into a trance until they saw their dead relatives. The ghost dancers were massacred at Wounded Knee, and their dreams wiped out with Gatling guns. Dreams are dangerous to the frog skin world, which tries to keep them away with cannons. Damn, that's profound. Dreams are dangerous to the frog skin world, which tries to keep them away with cannons. I was about 21 years old when some men told me, "There's a new powerful medicine. It's going to whirl you around. It will make you see God." As with the ghost dance, the men who brought us this new medicine were not from our own tribe. One was an Arapaho and the other a Blackfoot, a man called Lone Bear. I wanted to experience this, and I went to their first meeting in a lonely shack. 6 men were sitting on the floor of an empty room. They had a half-gallon can full of cut-up peyote. The Arapaho and the Blackfoot were talking in their language. I couldn't make it out, but I understood what they were trying to say. "Eat this and you will see a new light." I felt strange taking this new medicine and took only a few tablespoons at first. The peyote was powerful. The drum got into me. The drum got into me. The gourd got into me. There were voices coming to me out of that rattle. I was closing my eyes, looking inward into myself, hunkered down on my haunches, my back against the wall, feeling my bones through my skin. I liked the pehuta because it whirled me around. By midnight, I was having visions. First, I saw a square turning into a circle, into a half moon, into a beaded belt, green and blue, which was spinning around me. I could see myself as if looking down from a high mountain, sitting with the other 6 men, seeing myself crouching in the corner of that log house. Suddenly, I was back within myself. My eyes were on the logs, which seemed very close by, like looking through a magnifying glass. I saw something crawling out between the chinks. It was a big ant, maybe 10 feet high, the biggest ant there ever was, all horns, shiny like a lobster. As the ant grew bigger, the room expanded with it. I saw insects starting to eat me. I got scared and tried to get away but couldn't move. The leader, the roadman, could tell that I was seeing something. He knew how I felt. He whirled his gourd around, shook his fan of feathers at me. I came back to life, back from someplace outside the log house, it seemed to me. I was confused. I tried to think about somebody I loved, my grandmother, my uncle, but it didn't work. My thoughts were getting away from me like a stampeding herd. I tried to think about the white man, about the frog skin world, and that didn't work. I tried to think about animals, but was unable to concentrate. The men had told me, "Eat this and you will see God." I did not see God. I couldn't think in complete words, only in syllables, one syllable at a time. I made a prayer to the Great Spirit to help me, show me. A sweet smell came up, not in my nostrils, but in my mind. It wasn't a perfume or a scent from nature, only I could smell it. I saw a book turn into a rock. The rock turned into a cave. I didn't know what to make of it, but there was something wakan, something sacred there. I knew it was good, but it scared me at the same time. The leader handed me the staff and the gourd. It was my turn to sing, but I didn't know how, and they had to pass me by. When the sun finally came up, I was exhausted and lightheaded. I was shook up. Something had happened that I could not explain. It would take a long time to think about it. I became a peyote for a number of years and went regularly to their meetings, but I did not give myself up wholly to it. I also got myself deeper into our old Sioux beliefs, the spirit world, listened to preachers, herb men, and the Yuwipi. I was slowly forming an idea of where I wanted to go. I could dimly see my place, but I could also see a number of different roads leading up to it, and I did not yet know which road to take. So I tried them all, coming to many dead ends. The police tried to stamp out this new peyote cult, as they had stamped out the ghost dance. Not because peyote was a drug. Drugs weren't on our mind then, but because it was Indian, a competition to the missionaries. The police didn't like me very much anyhow, aside from the peyote. I had a place in Pine Ridge and another one in Rosebud. At Pine Ridge, I kept a girl. We weren't married according to the white man's view. The missionaries called it a common law arrangement. They didn't allow this at that time and threw you in jail for it. They said, you can't stay together with a girl unless you are properly married, our way. I had gone to a peyote meeting and the police came and raided it. They came at twilight. I guess they must have smelled it or somebody had tipped them off. They broke the door open looking for the peyote but couldn't find any. It was kept 2 miles away from the house and hadn't been brought in yet for the meeting. As they turned the kerosene lamp on, they saw me. At once they forgot about the peyote and took after me. I was a bad man in their eyes, a bad example to all the little sheep on the reservation. The cabin was only 1,000 feet away from the borderline between the reservations. The Pine Ridge and the Rosebud police were in on the raid, but each had to stay on his own side of the line. They were not supposed to cross it. I ran along the boundary, the Rosebud patrol car on one side, the Pine Ridge wagon on the other. They were taking pot shots at me to make me stop, but I knew they weren't trying to hit me. They didn't dare. If the Rosebud police came too close, I jumped across into Pine Ridge territory and the other way around, hopping back and forth across that line like some oversized grasshopper. Just when I was all tuckered out, my heart pounding like mad, I got into the Pine Hills where their cars couldn't follow me. They got out with their guns drawn, trying to keep up with me, but I lost them in the dark. They arrested my girlfriend, but when I completely disappeared, they turned her loose. They watched her, put her out as bait, but I wasn't that easy to catch. I lit out for Standing Rock for a while and let things cool down. I had a beautiful nest out there on the prairie for my girl. I was a peyote for 6 years. After that, I quit it. I found out that it was not my way. It was a dead end, a box canyon, and I had to find my way out of it. I don't want to talk down this peyote cult. In many Indian tribes, they have people believing in this medicine. Grandfather Peyote brings many people together, not only as members of this religion, but as Indians, and that is good. Some tribes have had peyote for so long that it has become their main and only religion. Many people have forgotten their old beliefs, which the missionaries stamped out, and only the peyote is left. It is the only Indian belief they know. But for us Sioux, it is something fairly new, different from our belief in the Great Spirit and the sacred pipe. Slowly, I came to realize that I should not mix up these two beliefs, confuse them with each other. I felt that the time had come for me to choose the pipe or the peyote. I chose the pipe. At the time I quit peyote, I had found out what a real Sioux vision was like. If you dream, that's no vision. Anybody can dream. And if you take an herb, well, even the butcher boy at his meat counter will have a vision after eating peyote. The real vision has to come out of your own juices. It is not a dream. It is very real. It hits you sharp and clear like an electric shock. You are wide awake, and suddenly there is a person standing next to you who you know can't be there at all. Or somebody is sitting close by, and all at once you see him also up on a hill half a mile away. Yet you are not dreaming, your eyes are open. You have to work for this, empty your mind for it. Peyote is for the poor people. It helps to get them out of their despair, gives them something to grab a hold of. But I couldn't stop there, I had to go further. Once you have experienced the real thing, you will never be satisfied with anything else. It will be all or nothing for you then. To find out, it has lasted my whole life. In a way, I was always hopping back and forth across the boundary line of my mind. For 3 years, I was a bootlegger. I ran a little cafe and pool hall in Parmalee with a dice table and a Nickelodeon. I had the best red eye anywhere. I played with the police. I had a certain kind of bottle of an unusual shape in which I kept the real hot hard stuff, the genuine rattlesnake piss. When the stoolie came in, I let him have a big swig of that gut warmer, guaranteed to maim and kill. In no time, he was back with the police, and there was the evidence still standing on the table. They marched us off to the judge, me and the bottle. The judge said, "What have we got here, a quart of busthead?" He poured himself a drink, in his official capacity only, as he explained, and then he made a big face. "Brr, that stuff is cold tea, awful." I had 2 of those funny bottles and had switched them. They had to let me go. I played so many tricks on them, the police left me alone for a while. Being a kind of two-face, I then wanted to find out how it looked from the other side. When there was an opening for a tribal policeman in the Black Pipe district, I went for it. I was surprised when they gave it to me because I was a hellraiser, but I was popular with the people. They handed me a badge and a gun, but I put the shooting iron away in a drawer. I never carried it. I carried only a loaded sap for emergencies, but the emergency never came. Right on my first day as a lawman, I found out how it felt to have a drunk cuss the shit out of you. I was known as the relationship cop. Everybody was my relative. Now, when your cousin gets drunk and you don't arrest him, you take him home. I followed that policy. When I saw a drunk, I told him, "Cousin, I am a real mean man. Instead of taking you to jail, I take you to your old woman. Let her use the rolling pin on you." That's how mean I am. When I saw a young squaw tying one on, hanging around with the wrong buck, I took her aside. "Say, my girl, let me take you home to your ma. That man is no good. He has a half-dozen girls already. He only wants to get you in the family way." How do you know? Because I do that myself. One son of a bitch with the squaw fever can recognize another. Well, I guess you can take me home then. I guess you know what you were talking about. I kept it up for a while, being a night cop, until the novelty wore off. For me, for the drunks, and for the council. Some tribal cops are real mean half-bloods. They can't beat the white man, so they beat the Indian, the bottom guy. It makes them feel like somebody. I had made a big change. After I turned in my badge, I think the drunks began to miss me, but I wouldn't stay put in one place. The years passed. I was getting older and had tried almost everything. I was like a big jigsaw puzzle. Year by year, new pieces were added to form the complete picture. A few pieces were still missing. In 1941, I was working for a farmer in Nebraska. He was a nice guy, very sociable, with a wonderful wife and kids. There was a love there between myself and that white family. He lived close to the earth in a very natural way. Not many machines or gadgets. In a self-built house made of the stones and trees that were around him. A part of the land. You could tell that this man was all right by the many trees that surrounded his place. In Nebraska and Dakota, a lot of those hog and corn farmers are so stingy, they won't have more than 4 trees standing on their property, 2 at the front porch to give a little shade and 2 in the back. All the rest of the trees go under to make room for whatever they are growing. They don't want to waste a square foot because they could maybe lose a nickel or a dime that way. And those stingy frog skinners with their shriveled souls raise only 1 cash crop and live out of tins. My farmer wasn't like this. He had himself a little forest of trees, and now and then when he passed one of them, he would pat its trunk absent-mindedly as if it were some kind of pet. And he raised his own food. I could get along fine with a man like him. He let me have a piece of his land to use for myself, and I planted my own corn and potatoes there. He was a cripple, and I had to do most of his job for him, the hard labor, running his tractor, but he treated me like one of his family. His wife made wonderful pies, and I put some meat on my bones at their place. Then one day I got this notice from the government, from the great white father himself. Greetings. They wanted me to kill some white people. Oh man, I forgot about this. Then one day I got this notice from the government, from the great white father himself. Greetings. They wanted me to kill some white people. Suddenly, that's all right. What do you know? That farmer gave me my pay, a lot more than he owed me, and put on a big send-off for me and my relations. One big 2-day son of a bitching drunk. They put me on a train to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. I was as drunk as a boiled owl. There were a lot of other Indian boys on that train, all going to the same place. The army doctors who examined me first put me in 4F. I guess they thought I was too old by that time. But I wanted to stay with my buddies, go where they were going. So I joined a few Sioux in another line, and this time I passed. I was with a lot of different outfits, wearing a helmet and a gun. At home, when I was a kid, a bow and arrow was a, quote, concealed weapon. The soldiering business was a big disappointment to me. They were wasting our time with a lot of foolish orders, drill, red tape, saluting. 90% of all my time in the army was just standing around, waiting for orders. Counting coup Indian style in the old way made a lot more sense. One day, after basic training, we had to pass in review before some big shot general. Some of the white boys had their relations coming down to see them, but they didn't ship in our folks from the reservation. Well, we were standing stiff like ninepins, and that big chief was making a speech. Men, you're soldiers now, not civilians. Is there anybody here who doesn't like the army? Any complaints? He didn't expect an answer, but I stepped forward. Shit, I don't like this white man's army. Teach us to shoot, but forget about the rest. You are wasting our time. They tried to hold me back, make me shut up, but I got to that general. They treat us like slaves. I don't mind fighting, but you can't make a wind-up toy out of me. The general looked at me and saw that I was an Indian. He made another speech. You soldier boys, we all know that nobody likes this man's army, but nobody admits it. Only this guy here is telling the truth. He gave me an extra stripe then and there, and I marched the platoon home. Next payday, the day the eagle shits, as they called it, I got good and drunk, and they took my stripes off. I finally got shipped out. I was the oldest man in the outfit. The others were kids compared to me. When things got hairy, they cried real tears, and I was their babysitter. I was a real rough babysitter, I guess. I thought I'd scout me a German, lift that blonde hair. Here's one in the eye for Custer and all that. But I changed my mind. I guess it was the cheap wine that made me think of it in the first place. A lot of nonsense is talked and written about war. Fight for your country, for America, for democracy, for your loved ones. Hell, a soldier fights only to protect himself. Somebody shoots at him, so he shoots back before the other guy can kill him. He runs like a deer. He comes back and brags, I fought for my flag. That's a lot of tashesli, a lot of bull. When he's shot at, nobody thinks of a piece of cloth. The government takes our Indian boys, our uncles, cousins, brothers, sons, all of us, to fight their wars. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. As long as the shooting keeps on, we are the heroes, like Ira Hayes, who won the Congressional Medal of Honor at Iwo Jima. When we come back, we are once again incompetent wards of the government and wind up in a ditch, also like Ira Hayes. It wasn't white men who killed Sitting Bull, but Indians, Hunk Papa Sioux like himself, paid off in green frog skins. A white soldier stabbed Crazy Horse with his bayonet, but it was Indian police who kept his arms pinned to his sides so that the white troopers could use him for bayonet practice. You always find some hungry Indians to do your fighting. The anthropologists say we came over from Asia over this land bridge to Alaska, but maybe we have been here all the time, right from the beginning, and traffic moved the other way, from this continent to over there. Maybe those Vietnamese are all former Indians, and we are all Crow and Ree scouts riding point for a new Custer. I have seen pictures of Song Mai, My Lai, and I have seen pictures of Wounded Knee, the dead mothers with their babies. And I remember my grandfather, Good Fox, telling me about the dead mother with a baby nursing at her cold breast, drinking that cold milk. My Lai was hot, and Wounded Knee was icy cold, and that's the only difference. They are playing around with the sacred fire of the sun, making it into atom bombs. They'll only succeed in blowing their own heads off in the end. How not to do this, they could learn from us, but maybe they think we are too uneducated, not worth listening to. I have saved one copy of our tribal newspaper. It is a couple of years old. I kept it because it has a poem in it written by one of our Sioux boys in Vietnam, Spotted Warbonnet, who was stationed in the DMZ when he wrote it. I wished I could have written this poem because it expresses how I feel, what most of us feel. The Lament of the Sioux Reservation Indian. They took the whole Sioux nation and put it on this reservation. They took away our way of life, the tomahawk, the bow and knife. They put our papoose in a crib and took the buckskin from our rib. They took away our native tongue and talked their English to our young. The old teepee we all love so, they're using now just for a show. And all our beads we made by hand, our nowadays are made in Japan. Although they've changed our ways of old, they'll never change our hearts and souls. Though I wear a man's shirt and tie, I'm still a red man deep inside. Hi-ya-ho, hi-ya-yo-ho. From the Rosebud Sioux Herald. Within a month after Normandy, somebody discovered that I was over 39 years old and I was released from the army. That was also my release from the green frogskin world. My roaming was at an end, and I settled down to my only full-time job, being an Indian. So there you go, everybody. That was chapter 3 of the book Lame Deer Seeker of Visions. Took me a little bit longer than I thought it would, but it's worth it. Very thought-provoking, beautifully written, humorous, and that's it and that's that for tonight. I don't got nothing else to say, so much love, everybody, and I'll hop back on the air real soon. Have a lovely Thursday evening, or whenever you hear this, in the rabbit holes of space and time. Little Raven signing out.
Snitches get stitches, so the ghetto has secrets. Immigration is how you build up a nation. Gentrification, creating these migrations. Your property get taken when it's poverty you facing. Creating the conditions for permanent vacations. State paid, the hate made. School to prison pipeline, working since 8th grade. It's the cards that we dealt. We learned how to place spades and burners was our names. In the yards with the trains. I don't have many friends in this business, I only trust a few. The most illustrious, the post-industrial. There's no sleep, only the dead slumber. Beware of the headhunters, they want another ransom. Too busy surviving to be living. Too busy surviving to be living in. Too busy surviving to be living. Too busy surviving to be living in. Too busy surviving to be living. Too busy surviving to be living in. Too busy surviving to be living. Too busy surviving to be living in.